Welcome to Let's Talk About Culture, Reconcile Book Study. I thank you all for giving what I call one of your most precious gifts is your time. Today is July 2nd, and I just want to open up by introducing my co-host, Noelle Nightingale. Tim Nightingale is a co-host as well. He'll be on throughout the sessions. I want to let you know this is an amazing opportunity, something that I think you generally have to pay for, but we're giving, we have two service people at heart, and they wanted to share their gift with you. I want to go over our norms. One, let's talk about culture. Um, we bring on different resources, and I share different resources to enlighten you and to connect you to things that may support you in the work that you do, and also to heal you, and also to support you, as we are the most important piece of the work that we do, because if we are not healthy mind, body, and spirit, we cannot do the work day to day. So what Let's Talk About Culture is not. Anyone I bring on, for example, we are using the resource Reconcile. This is a resource, and we are not critiquing the work of Reconcile, but we're using it to lead us into our conversation about peacemaking and conflict, and how do we deal with certain scenarios. So we are going to give you some takeaways, and I am excited to engage with you all today. And we're going to start off by hoping everybody has read the book, chapters 1 through 3, and we want you to share out in the chat box. We're going to give you a minute to share out a couple of your takeaways from chapters 1 to 3. And right now you can start entering those into the chat. And while you're entering them in the chat, I want to kind of go over our norms. When you go into, we're going to go into breakout rooms, and it'll be one person with you to introduce yourself, and that we keep everything confidential. I know we're going live in the beginning, but chat rooms will not be live, because this is a way that you can practice something that you may not be able to practice at work, but some of us have peers that we can practice with. So we want to keep what we say in the book study chats confidential. And if you would, we would ask that you would share your screen, show your face, so the others know who they're talking to and who they're talking with, just for comfort. I mean, when we're on Facebook, if you don't want to share your face, that's fine. But if you would share it when we get ready to go in the chat room, so that they're talking to a live person, we appreciate that vulnerability and being open to engage with another person. And right now, if you can enter some takeaways in the chat, let me see if I can play a little music for you. All right. So chapters 1 through 3, we're writing down, sharing in the chat just some takeaways. We're gonna give you a couple of minutes to do that.
So Kimberly, I think maybe if you wouldn't mind, I'll just maybe read them.
Yes,
So that
let's
people
start.
who are watching can hear what people are saying.
Yes.
So Courtney Ringo Powers said, valuing each other's humanity is key to reconciliation. So yeah, I think that's a huge kind of like shift. Like I think sometimes for us to think about other people's humanity, because I think a lot of times it's easy just to like categorize them in certain areas and dismiss them. And so it kind of keeps us from dismissing people if we think about their humanity. Lisa Nichols said self-reflection and self-care. I know that especially, self-care is a big thing, I think, lately. But I think he was saying that self-care is actually the hard work, because I think a lot of times we think like, oh, I got to take care of myself so I can do the hard work, but self-care is part of the hard work that we're doing. And so that spoke to me as well. Tania Knott said, on journey encounter, reconciliation is a journey, an encounter with self and others and God. And I think that kind of broadens our horizon of what reconciliation really is. I think a lot of times we think of it more as like a destination, where it's like, I've arrived at reconciliation. And what John Paul Lederach is offering is, no, it is, and it's all these other things too. It's a journey along the way. It's the way that we interact with people and with others and with God as well. Laura Giametti said, to feel the world from the author's perspective and to place ourselves not in control of, but alongside the human experience and condition. And yeah, I mean, that's a huge piece. Taking in the other's perspective and yeah, that not in control of, I think, is a huge piece, because as we think about reconciliation and as we're going to be talking about it, we're not in control of the outcome. We're not in control of what the other person does and how they react. And then this idea of coming alongside other people, walking alongside, experiencing life with others people. And then Anita Hernandez said, we have to see our common humanity. So once again, the idea of our common humanity, which I think that common humanity is something that if we lose, I think that's when all these terrible things happen, is when we lose sight of the humanity of other people. So it's not just important in reconciliation, it's important in life. So yeah, definitely. Was there any others that wanted to add?
I wanted to share out a thought with everyone when we think about, from the Christian perspective of losing a child, how the book opens up. And then as you dig into the chapter, he talks about, that's what God did, giving up a child for us, giving up a child for people who are not for you, that are your enemy. Well, that you think are your enemy. That's what led me to continue to read the book, because it helped me see within myself, like, if God could do this for us, I can do this for a coworker or a peer that is doing something that I know is not right, and step out of my cardinal mind feelings and into humanity and, what is my purpose? So that's really deep for me. I even got emotional as I read that, like, wow, he had such a drive for peacemaking. He asked, what have I gotten my family into? I don't know if anybody else had that reflection in that part. Anybody else want to share out on that part?
Kimberly, yeah, that was, I thought, wow, what a sacrifice he made. And it almost made me feel like, what sacrifices have I made, to go about forgiving others when they've hurt me, or I just thought that was such a great way to put it. Yeah, I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna try to do better at that. I want to be able to not hold grudges, or be able to love on others when they've done harm or done wrong to hurt me.
Yeah.
So here's another quote, thank you for that, Lisa, that I highlighted in the first chapter is, to take up the journey of reconciliation, we need both. We have to keep our feet on the ground, connect to the challenge of current realities. Think about what we're going through right now, guys. And we need our head in the clouds with the capacity to live into a new reality of more just, equitable, and peaceful relationships. Like, that is going to be on my on a sticky on my computer for the rest of the year. Did anybody else highlight that?
Yeah, I think actually that's one of the things that it's funny because I mean, I would say I'm an optimistic realist, but I am definitely get stuck in the real is like what is like, and it's funny because Tim, my husband, is a very much more like a dreamer, and I get really like stressed out when he starts dreaming, and I'm like, but that's not reality. That's not how things are. And so this book is really, it challenges me because I mean, it's true. In order to bring change, you have to dream of what is not already, because if we just accept what is already, it will continue to be, right? And so having that kind of like freedom to dream, to kind of think about how do I want things to be, really sets me up for the opportunity to do something different so I can bring something different. So
I have to be careful because I've read the book in its entirety, not to say anything going forward, but I'll share one more quote. Thank you, Noelle. Since it says, since I believe that God encounters us through the specific narratives of our lives and those of others, these chapters explore biblical windows on the landscapes of reconciliation. And I just want to tell you guys, you are in for a treat. If anybody has gone beyond, they already know, but it's you're just in for a treat of reflection within yourselves. All right, if nobody else has nothing else to share, does
I
anybody
think
have anything else? Oh, go
Karis
ahead,
added,
Karis.
yes, and the only other question he posed about peace is, but what is the cost? And that's a very good, that's a great point, because there is a cost, right? When we pursue reconciliation, it could come, it will most likely come at a cost. And we have to decide if it's worth the cost or not. And, you know, I'll talk about this a little bit. There is a cost to not pursuing it as well. So but it's a very valid and a question that you really should consider before pursuing it.
Anybody else?
Hey, Kimberly, how are you guys?
Hi, James. Thank
Hey,
you.
I just got the book today and I read it, first chapter. And the quote that you said about the sacrificing of your child, that really got to me. That hit me hard. But then when I kept on reading, I read about how Christians talk about how they interpreted peace with God, and also how they interpret it with their coworkers, and how they do it in two different ways. And so that really, I started thinking about how there's been times where I found, when I've gone to God and I found peace. And then there's times where I found peace with my wife, Corey. And so it was really, it kind of struck me when I read that. So I'm kind of looking forward to reading this book. So thank you for doing everything and giving us this book, because this is a really good book.
Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'll share another thing with you guys in chapter 2. These are just some of my highlights. So much of conflict sits inside of us. So James, what you're talking about, you found Pete, the co-workers versus, your relationship with your family. With our perceptions and the stories that we start to tell about ourselves and others. Think about that. And then one last piece down, it says, questions rise repeatedly in every conflict. Who am I? Who are you? And who are we? Anybody else? Some other highlights in chapter 2? Noelle, you have any other highlights?
I mean, yeah, I love this book, so.
Me too.
You know, I think for me, beyond what you had said, I think that, you know, this whole idea of when we encounter conflict, oftentimes our response is to move away, right? We want to move away from the conflict. And so we saw that in the story of Jacob and Esau. And it was rooted in the experience of humiliation. And I think that's a very common experience for people, that when we feel humiliated or put down or discredited or whatever, even challenged really sometimes, we tend to then move away from the person or people that are causing that. And so this idea of like moving away and then turning towards. So then at the point of which he starts to consider reconciliation, he has to turn back towards the person he's moved away from. And that turning towards is really the key. When we do mediation, first we talk to each party or however many parties are involved, and we kind of understand what's going on, what the problem is, what's the root of the conflict. And then we, you know, once everybody agrees to all the ground rules and that they're going to participate, when we bring them together, there has to be this choice to face the other person. And so we always make sure that we see that before we bring people together, because if people haven't chosen to be there and they haven't chosen to be there to be respectful and to work out the problem, then like we won't bring them together. And so this turn is very significant for reconciliation and also for the work that we do and with mediation. And then also on page 39 at the top, it says, reconciliation will never move in a straight line from A to B. It is fraught with challenges from outside threat and inside insecurity. And I think we always want that straight line because we think, okay, A, B, C, D, done, right? But that's not always the case. I mean, sometimes with small things it can be, but with, you know, more significant things, it's not often that's just like, okay, we had the one talk and now everything's fine, or whatever it is. So I think that's helpful to think about as you pursue reconciliation.
Awesome. All right, anything else before we move into examples?
What about chapter 3? Anybody from chapter 3? And I think chapter 3 is that idea of humanity, right? Turning and seeing the person's humanity. That example of when you see a homeless person, do you look in their eyes or do you turn away? And I mean, that was pretty convicting for me. I often turn away. I often don't want to see. I don't want them to approach me. I don't want to engage.
And it talks about how hard it is. It's not easy to look and look again toward the face of those we feel I have done us or wished us harm. So how do you look at somebody that just said, I'm going to say a cuss word at you or said something wrong? Or me in the school when a parent just called me every name but my name. How do you look at that person? And it's hard. Just being honest, it's really hard.
Yeah.
So humanity is big, and understanding that within yourselves. Anybody else? Well, I'll share out one more thing because I feel like I've done this with friends, or they be like, you get that, right? So I forgot what page it's on, but it says, it was the third point, that we seek external validation and acknowledgement and do not value our internal criteria and standards as equally valid.
Mm-hmm.
That's big.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was just talking to a friend. I'm going to be writing an article for our church is part of a larger union, and I'm going to be writing an article for this larger distribution, and I'm feeling a little nervous about it. And she was like, Noelle, like, you know what you're talking about, you know, like what God is putting on your heart. Like, you don't need to like have everybody say, yeah, that's the right thing before you pursue it. And I think, at least for me, I often do that, where I want people to tell me, yeah, you're right, before I can then act. And that's not really what we're supposed to be doing.
No. I have 2 more highlights before we move on. To reconcile, this is in chapter 3, requires a commitment to see the face of God in others, to feel the world from their perspective, and to place ourselves not in control of, but alongside the human experience and condition. When we share in our role play, I'll give a deeper example of that, but that part of the chapter in chapter 3 helped me move through a hard situation I was going through. To see God in them, to see from their perspective how they see me, even though I felt that they were treating me wrong. It was very deep process for me. And then in that same chapter, it talks about if we consider this the root art of reconciliation, then loving God, the first of the 3, requires a willingness to dwell alongside human suffering, to be with others in the way God has chosen to be with us. So that was a breakthrough for me, like to really give somebody that grace, because we all want it and need it at times in our lives, depending on what we're going through. No matter what they've done or what we've done, we all deserve it. And so that's all I have for the first 3 chapters. So I'm ready if you are for the next part, Noelle.
Sure, yeah, and I just want to say, Tania, she said again, that journey toward and through, and a quality of presence that turns into compassion. Yeah, that was I appreciate that as well. And then Courtney Ringo Power says, the idea of alongsideness was powerful for me in chapter 3 also. So
Powerful.
yeah. Okay, well, so kind of taking what we read in chapters 1 through 3, I have something that I think will be helpful for us as we consider reconciliation. So let me share my screen with you. Okay, so this is the idea of turning towards reconciliation. So what John Paul Lederach said, when you make that decision to turn. So as you're considering to turn, these are the things I would suggest you consider. So first of all, I want you to think in your mind of a relatively small conflict. So this is not the like conflict that's gone on for 20 years. This is like maybe somebody said something to you, maybe someone said something behind your back about you. So like small, because we're gonna practice, and I don't want you to practice on the biggest conflict of your life. So think of a small conflict. And now I want you to think of the dream, right? The ideal situation or outcome. So what's that thing that is not yet, but that you want to be? And so I want you to think of it in terms of how you feel emotionally. So like, are you happy? Are you excited? Are you like, what are the emotions that go along with it? what does the social situation look like? Maybe you enjoy being with this person again, or maybe whatever was going on, people aren't talking about it anymore, whatever, like, so think of it socially. And then health. So I want you to think of health not just like, you know, my leg hurts, but I want you to think of it as like, kind of like mental as well. So like, how much time does it take up in my mind? Like, how do I feel within myself, like when I see that person? So I want you to think of it that way. And then also financially, sometimes there's a financial cost to a particular conflict, and I want you to think of financially what that would look like in the ideal situation. So maybe you get paid back, or maybe, you know, what is that? Then I want you to consider what, you know, the realistic piece of it. I want you to consider what is the current situation. And once again, consider all these things. How do I feel when I see them or am in that situation? What's the social situation around it? Also the health or mental state, as well as the financial. Then the next step that you would do is to compare the two lists. So compare the ideal situation with the current situation. And what that does is then it allows you to see how far you have to go to bridge, if you see that arch, how much of a bridge there is to get across. And then you are to consider the cost to get to the ideal situation. So we talked about the risk involved. There's a risk, there's a cost involved. And so I want you to think about, once again, the same things, the emotional, social, health, and financial risk that you will be taking, or the cost that you will be making in order to achieve reconciliation in this particular situation. And then next, I want you to also consider the other side of it, is that what will it cost to not try? So, and sometimes, you know, you also have to weigh that potentially things could get worse as you're not trying to reconcile. Because oftentimes I think we have this notion that, oh, if I just don't do anything, it'll go away. And what we typically see is that things don't just get better on their own. It usually gets worse. And so I want you to take that into consideration and as you weigh the cost of not doing anything, once again, with the emotional, social, health, and financial piece. And then once again, compare the two to see, like, well, because sometimes, you know, like maybe it's so small and insignificant that you look at it and you're like, you know what? Not trying actually isn't going to cost me much, but if I do try, it's going to cost me a whole lot. So maybe I don't want to try, and I'm going to be okay with that. So, I mean, of course, we'd always encourage you to try to reconcile, but you know, you have to make your own decision about what's best for you. So then you need to reflect on the list and the costs and decide if it's in your best interest to try to resolve the conflict. So, what we're going to do, so, and then I have a list of the 4 kind of things that I want you to consider. So if you want to maybe take a picture of that if you can, because we're going to do an example first, but we're going to send you into a breakout room to practice, and I want you to have those questions available to you so you can remember. So what is the ideal situation? What is the current situation? What will it cost to pursue reconciliation? And what will it cost not to pursue it? Okay, so Kimberly is going to be my brave volunteer, and she is going to tell us a story of conflict. Just briefly, Kimberly, if you could just briefly say like what it is, we don't need all the specifics. And then I'm going to take you through this process so everybody can see how to use these questions. So I guess I can stop the shares. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna be the guinea pig. Okay, I want to use one as more with our peer friendships. So how many of us have friends, and it could be certain things that happen, or things that they do that really bother you, and we never say anything. Can anybody share that with me? All
What? You
right.
should avoid with your friends? No.
I know. And it's because you love them, like you don't want to. So anyway, so I have a friend, and it's not just that friend. It's just probably it's like what I would call maybe my pet peeve, but I can see how this can relate to my job as well. It can be things that people do, but that says things sometimes that really bother me, you know. And I'll say maybe like something political, comments, and I just kind of hold it in, hold it in, hold it in, and then not say anything. But I really want to say something about it because it really is bothering me, and I'm like, but you're my friend, and I don't want to make my friend upset, and I don't like to be mean to be people. So I always tell my friends, I don't want to be mean, so I'm usually the person like in the book I turn away from, and I'm like, I'm not talking to you. But that's being mean too, honestly, probably to them, but not to me. It's like what I call my coping mechanism. But yeah, I just don't like those comments, and it just really bothers me.
Okay.
And
So is there one particular like instance, not like all of them, just like one particular instance that you can think of that we can kind of go through this with?
okay, so the other day the comment was like, I don't understand why are say black people holding up these signs? Like, I don't get it. And burning down their things that they, that they own, businesses that they own too.
Okay. So somebody said something to you and you felt upset by
Hmm.
what they said. Okay. So if we could just set that comment aside for a moment, and I want you to imagine the ideal friendship and relationship that you have with this person. And so I want you to tell me what it looks like. I want you to say, tell me like how it makes you feel, how like you interact. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the ideal, perfect, wonderful, all things possible relationship?
It's a good relationship. I think my friends, we all have different perspectives, and I think that's what makes our friendships unique. We all bring something to the table. Um, we get along for the most part. So if I'm just speaking an ideal, that we would continue to get along and respect each other's perspectives. But I don't want that person not to express their perspectives, but if I know something bothers that person, I'm not gonna say that to that person. You know what I mean? Like, if I know that bothers you, I'm not gonna continue to say stuff like that.
Right. So you're not looking for a clone of yourself for them to think exactly like you. What you're looking for is respect.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you want respect in the relationship. And how do you feel like in the ideal situation? Like, how do you feel like when you see this friend?
Good. I mean, welcoming, happy.
So you feel happy, you feel good, you feel welcomed, and
Yeah,
you welcome them in it in your
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. And then how do you feel like within your body? Like, do you feel like
Like at peace, like, oh, that's my girl, like
right?
that. Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know that financially necessarily plays in with this particular scenario unless she like owes you money or he owes you money, but
No.
okay. Okay, so then let's move on to the next one. So what is the reality of the current situation of you and this person who has said this thing that hurt you? Or
What is the reality?
yeah, so how do you feel when you think about the relationship currently? How does it make you feel?
Now that the person said that,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
like, I need to talk to them about it. Like, I don't want, um, I just, like I told you, I will separate myself, even though I'm still like, I like that friend, being around that friend. If the friend continues to say things that, I don't want to say things that I don't agree with, say things that bother me personally, I feel like that person shouldn't be in my circle.
Right. So you don't, they kind of like take the reverse of what you said before, is maybe this person, you don't feel like this person is respecting you
Yeah.
in what they're saying. Because if they already are aware of the ways that you think or feel and they're still continuing to say that, then that's kind of a form of disrespect.
Yeah, and I feel like if the person is very aware, like it's the person I talk to all the time, they know me, they know what I talk about, what I do, my friend group, like, you don't have to agree with me, but you know that this will not sit well with Kimberly, like
Right.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right. So then you had mentioned that you, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I'm just kind of digging into what you've already said, but the piece of the social piece is that you don't necessarily, like, you want to have a relationship with them and a good relationship with them, but currently, based on the way that what they've said, maybe you don't feel like always being around them if they're going to be saying things like
Yeah.
that. Right. And then physically, is there anything physically that, like, do you spend time thinking about this conflict, or do you feel like tense when you see this person, or is there anything like that that?
In the moment, and then if the person calls me. So in the moment, I'm more of a person to be like, okay, I'm gonna talk to you later, or I'm gonna call you back, or coronavirus, so we're really not face to face. So I'm like, I usually will say, I'll talk to you later, or I'll call you back. But that's my cue for, I'm not talking to you.
So just so you know, any friends out there, she says that,
Now you watch Bridesmaids, that's not always the case. I might be at work really talking to somebody. But anyway, no, and
Not trying to get you in trouble, Kimberly.
I know. But I usually will tell the person that it bothered me, honestly. Okay, let's role play. Go ahead.
Okay. So then we have the two lists. So in one list, you want to feel respected, you want to feel excited and happy and welcoming when you see this person. You want to spend time with the person and enjoy their company. And so that's like the ideal. The current situation is maybe you feel a bit disrespected by them. You feel like you don't really want to be around them because of what they've said. And yeah, you're kind of like moving yourself away from that situation. Would you say that's an accurate view of the two?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you were to move towards your ideal, so what do you think it would take for you to make things right, or to be in a relationship where you feel respected, you feel like you want to be with this person, you feel like you would be excited to see them and happy if they called?
A conversation, that the person would be open to a conversation to talk about mutual respect, about our perspectives on different issues, our beliefs. And I mean, you can't change anybody, but may agree to disagree. That maybe those conversations are held with other people and not with me. I'm not saying you can't talk about that, because I'm not in control of what your beliefs are, but that's not the things I want to talk about with you. If we have different stance on that, I think that's what it would take, is a mutual conversation about our beliefs and what respect means to us.
So if you have that conversation about respect and maybe your different points of view, is there a risk that this person won't want to, not talk about these things with you, or not keep their opinions to themselves, or?
Yeah, there's a risk.
All right. And what would that mean then for your relationship or friendship?
Even though I value all my friendships, I'm a mom, so I value my life and my health more. Um, I know it sounds harsh, but I mean, if it's at the cost of my health and my sanity, I would rather be associates with my friends than to be close to them, because I think life's just too short to waste it on, arguing and negativity.
Hmm. So you feel like if you have the conversation and maybe it doesn't go well, and that you can both agree to respect each other and maybe not talk about certain things or whatever, um, a possible outcome could be that you move away from that person and are more associates than friends.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. So then, what do you think what kind of risk or cost do you think you would incur if you did nothing?
Frustrated when I talk to that person, always saying, I'm gonna call you back. Just like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right. And what about I mean, because I'm assuming you have other friends that you are with.
Yes.
So what does that look like?
In regards to this situation,
Yeah, because I mean, I'm
wish.
just thinking like if you're in relationship with this person and with other people, um, you're gonna probably see this person. Or
Oh, if they're in the same friend group, oh, I wouldn't be mean. I just.
no, I'm not saying you'd be mean. I'm just saying what would
I
it?
just be like, hey, like things would just be the same. It just wouldn't be a close knit, you know? I just think that talking about it versus holding it in makes things better. It's how we build relationships instead of divide,
Okay.
you
Well,
know? But
Kimberly, you're jumping to my next step, so just wait 1 minute. So, so then the next step is then to compare the two lists, right? And so the cost of trying versus not trying. So you said the cost of trying um, is, well, first of all, I guess you have to be open and honest with this person and have that conversation and say what it is that is bothering you. And then the possible risk is that they'll say, well, I don't really care, and continue to do what they're doing, right? And then maybe you don't have as close a friend anymore. The risk and cost of not engaging is that you will continue to be frustrated because you will continue to see the person. And I guess probably, I mean, say this, but I guess you would still then lose the friend to some extent, right?
yeah.
So according to you, Kimberly, you already said that you'd prefer to pursue that reconciliation piece and
Yeah.
try and risk it, right?
Yeah.
So is this something that has already happened or?
Yes, in some form or fashion.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Say, so Kimberly, are you going to go do it now? Or?
no, I did it in like a different scenario, but
Okay.
over the years, my friends know like my mechanism would be like, I'm not talking to you. That's just how, before I was able to have the words to say to talk about it. So I'm glad that I grew in that area,
Right.
because I think it's just collectively is better. Like, let's work it out. We're always going to have different perspectives.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So before we go into our breakout sessions, I just wanted to share one more thing with you. So as I mentioned, my husband and I, we have our consulting business where we kind of help people do this. And so obviously this is no charge to any of you. But one thing that we do offer that would be kind of like extra step is there's a thing called BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So the BATNA was developed within more for like businesses, but we found that this is actually appropriate and can be used for personal conflict as well. And so basically what we do is we help you understand like what assets you have going into the conversation, because sometimes when we go into a conversation, we feel like we're kind of at the mercy of the other person. And sometimes it's true. Like sometimes we can go through the whole process and realize, no, actually you really need that person to come through for you. But sometimes we go through and we're like, you know, you don't actually have that far to go to reach your ideal. You just need maybe just a little bit from the other person in order to achieve that ideal. And so if you're interested in that, typically I mean, this would be this would be a cost. It would be $25 to participate. It's an hour-long session, and we could work with you with whatever conflict that you're going through that you think would be helpful. So you could, my husband's email is on there. That's the best one because I work part-time, he works full-time, so he's more quick on the response. But that tim.nightingaledc@gmail.com is how you can get a hold of us. And yeah, and since you're part of this, it's a reduced rate. It's about a quarter of what we usually charge. So just want to make that available to you. No pressure at all. But just want to make that available to you. So I think at this point, we're going to go into our breakout groups or sessions where you're going to actually practice this with another person. So I want you to get that small conflict in your mind so you don't spend a lot of time thinking about it within your time slot. So we're going to break you up, and then once you come back, we're going to have a little time of reflection. And if you have any questions that came up as a result of this, we can talk about those then. So Kimberly, are we good on the...
Yeah, you're going to have 6 minutes. It should be you and another person. Hopefully you don't get one of us, but we're going to see how this works. Ready? This is my first time doing breakout rooms. Here we go. Okay, option. It put us all into one room. Sorry, one more time. I did not mean to put you all into the same breakout room. I'm bringing you back. I have to wait 39 seconds. Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you for practicing with me. Is that everybody?
Sorry, do you want to stop recording, Kimberly?
Oh, yes.